Hello everyone, welcome back to MechaNORN. It's been a while since we did these. We kind of took a week off because we're doing other things here and there. I mean, got games to play and anime to review,
Mhm.
and yep. And I have Jiro with me.
Hey, what's up, man? So many videos to play.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, I think I did Bahamut and Sword Art was my turn in the rotation to do those, so I was kind of busy with those two shows. But yeah,
hmm
and we're doing the same shows, Ange, Gundam Build Fight, and Gundam Recon. So we're starting with Ange again this week. With episode 4, A Loner's Revolt. And we get some stuff at the beginning, talk about I guess, a plan to, I guess I'm gonna call it Libertas, which is kind of confusing. I didn't know what it was, but I looked at the definition. It actually means someone who's free of something, being emancipated. So basically, I think I'm guessing that the girls will probably be free eventually to, get back
hmm
to society and get out of the prison, maybe.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm guessing anyway. And up to this point, I guess Anne's basically a killing machine. She's killing dragons left and right with no problem. She's not as scared as she used to be, and she's just getting all this money and she doesn't spend it. I was like,
hmm
damn.
It's easy to do that when you have what can be argued as the best mech of them all.
Right, yeah, yeah. The piece of junk is actually the best machine in the series,
hmm
which is kind of funny how that worked out. But yeah. Besides that, I mean, episode 4 generally for me felt like it was more comical in nature. I'm not sure if anyone else caught that because we had Chris and Rosalie trying to like just pull pranks on Ange to get back at her.
hmm
Basically, like they destroyed her uniform by cutting it all up, which backfired. They tried to give her like this, I guess, diarrhea medicine to make her go, and didn't work. That
hmm
backfired. Put thumbtacks in her seat in her mech. So a lot of childish pranks that you would see on like maybe a slice of life show. They kind of did in this. Kind of didn't.
hmm
I didn't think it fit.
Nah, I agree with that. It didn't fit in. I don't know, just it's the tone of the show that doesn't allow something like this to work where it's, the thumbtack and then all of a sudden they found out it was the the other girl's panties and it's like, oh, I'm gonna give you a beating, which that fits at least within the show, but
Yeah.
the overall scene just eh.
Yeah, the majority of the first half was just let's poke fun at Ange and see how we can do comedy. I
Mm.
mean, for me, I know Sunrise they do create Gintama, but this is not. I mean, I feel like it's not the time and place for comedy. I mean, we're still kind of early in the series. I would see it being later on, after you have Ange, maybe she hits it off with some of these girls and becomes friends with them. But right now, it
Mhm.
seems kind of like forced in there.
And it's also you have to establish uh, forgive me for bringing up the word tone again, but you also have to kind of establish that over the course of the previous episodes so that it seems within reason. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb amongst the entire episode, a scene like that.
Right. I mean, I would understand if it was like maybe a month has passed or 2 months have passed, and Anne's just kind of going about her daily business, just trying to survive, and the girl was just trying to get back at her for doing that. But they really didn't really explain how long it's been since she freaked out when she first fought her first dragon and all that stuff that happened last week. And Vivian, on the other hand, the redhead little girl that eats all the candy, she just wants to be friends with Ange. She's trying her best to be friends with everyone, but Ange is still a complete, bitch to everybody. She does not
hmm
like anybody, no matter, if you get close to her, she just kind of, brushes it off as like, she just wants to be alone, a loner basically. And I felt bad for Vivian. She just wants friends. That's all she really wants. I mean, this episode kind of showed that she's not really hell bent on like, I don't kill someone. She's kind of different than the most of the girls in the series.
She seems like the token upbeat, super positive, sort of moe, lowly type character in the show
Right.
that'll kind of stick around because you kind of need a personality like hers there. But yeah.
Yeah, she reminds me of Murray from Valve Rave, who was kind of similar. She was more quiet, but she was
hmm
this character that everyone kind of liked because she's always there, and it's nice seeing her. But these shows, I know they're gonna make you get attached to her so they can kill her off, just so you get that emotional tie to her, I guess. Which she's got all these characters I think have death flags already in
Yeah.
them, so it's like not gonna be very long. But yeah, so Vivian just wants friends, like I said. She just wants to get close to her, and Chris and Rosilla and Hilda, next scene, they kind of hit it off. All three of them kind of have a little fun.
Yeah, Vivian wants friends. Chris wants a little action.
Pretty much, yeah. And Hilda just wants to be, wants to rule it all, basically.
Hmm.
And Hilda hatches a plan that she's just gonna sabotage Ange's Vilkis with underwear and panties and bra and all this stuff to, I guess she threw it in the engine so
Yeah.
it would blow up, and it actually does work, but I thought
Hmm.
that was kind of stupid, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a weird scene, but then we get to the end of the episode, and that's when she's tied up in a bed next to a guy, and she's naked.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they're setting that up pretty funny in the next episode. And extra from episode 4 is like the Paramel like cell phones. The girls basically can, I guess, pimp the rides out. They can put stickers on it, decals,
Hmm.
whatever they want. I thought that was kind of funny. I'm like, just like a cell phone, people like having those little accessories all over it, and pretty funny.
Yeah.
And Jasmine had one of the funniest lines. She's like, everything from bras to real guns at the Jasmine Mall. Made me laugh. It's that slogan of hers for that. You can buy anything. And I forgot to mention there's a lot of Gundam Seed weapon shoutouts in this episode. There's a shot of like this wall of weapons, and it's like a shield from Gundam, like a rifle, and maybe like a sniper rifle from Gundam. So you definitely
Oh,
can tell the sunrises all over that.
yeah, what is this? Gundam Build Fighters?
Yeah, pretty
The
much.
shoutouts?
And they can, I guess, customize weapons and stuff. So if they want a certain weapon, because I guess Jasmine made a mention that these paramel are basic coffins for the girls, so they're gonna die in those machines. So it's like,
Hmm.
why not make it look cool? I guess, which is kind of funny, I guess. In episode 4, like you said, Ange is lost. Basically, the episode title, Ange Lost. And she, like you said, she woke up in this island with this strange guy tied up, and she's not really sure what's going on, who this guy is, and where his intentions are, and she's kind of got freaked out. But for me, Sunrise, this is one of their tropes where they do the island thing. They did it in Gundam Seed, they did it in Buddy Complex, and my favorite is Code Geass. We had Colin
Hmm.
was there, taking a bath
Yeah.
somewhere, and Uzaki got a hold of her. So yeah, it's definitely Sunrise. They love doing that.
Yeah. Can I, before we move on with the episode, can I just say that I dropped this show midway through this episode, so as long as Cross Ange is a part of the MechaNORN, it's a show that I at least won't be watching because they attached it. There's a dude in the series now, and they've ruined everything. Now I don't really talk like that in real life, but seriously, I feel like the first half it was just incredibly eye rolling with the scenes that were going on. It was super super tropey, about a guy that's never seen the female body form before, and just the way that those scenes went between Tusk is his name,
Yeah, that's his name.
and Ange, that was just man, that was annoying. And by that point, I had lost patience with the show.
Right. I mean, I can understand why. I mean, there's a like we've seen this all the time, Twitter Rue and all these other shows that this main dude, he just falls on top of Ange and he's awkward positions like that. People don't fall like that in the real world. I mean, just it's just so weird, awkward how they do that. But just like episode 4, I mean, they had comedy shoved in there. This just has a romance that really doesn't work for me. I mean, it's nice that there's another gender that they can play off of, but yeah, Tusk isn't really that. And a lot of people will complain that he looks like a Kira clone, but he's far from that. He's not even anywhere near the same as Kira.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
Kira at least had reasons why he wouldn't fight. This kid's just like, I'm on an island by myself. Eh,
Hmm.
they don't really
Yeah.
explain why.
Yeah, and he's a little bit, seems a little bit more of an outgoing type, a little bit pervish, of course, because of the scenes that we see where he felt the need to tie her up.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like, she has no weapons on her, obviously. You can tell, by
Hmm.
not having an outfit on, but yeah, it's very weird. And then the whole episode is a whole back and forth between him saving her life, and she's not really grateful about it. And that went on for about, I think, the majority of the episode. Then eventually she kind of figures out that he's not all bad and starts, you know, getting with him. But yeah,
Hmm.
he's. But I mean, there's only one interesting part with his character. He's got a background with his mom. I guess was a paramedic pilot, and for some reason, I guess he knew Jill, the leader of the prison group. And at the scene you see, I guess she's holding her arm. I guess it's missing at the time. So they kind of did reveal that I think Jill actually had the Vilcos before Ange got it. So,
Hmm.
but that was kind of interesting. But again, the majority of the episode is just Tusk doing his own thing with her.
I wonder, like, we see that other female character beside Ange in the opening. She has kind of like a princess type look going. I wonder if she's related to Tusk.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, especially the ending, they do show the character off a little bit more. And
Yeah.
yeah, but back to Tusk is weird that he's like I said, people said he was kind of a Kira clone. I don't see that, but he's voiced by Mamoru Miyamoto. I was like, what is he doing in this series? It's very weird to put like a to me I always consider him a top tier actor. Like putting him in this series is like like a maybe a secondary role. I'm not sure if he's going to be a major plot in the series or not, but I guess we'll have to see how that works.
hmm
And like I said, there's a romance between them that felt kind of forced. I think it's more one-sided than anything, or it would appear to be anyway. But there's a scene where they almost have the kiss and the dragons come, and that just seemed very weird. So yeah, the dragons are attacking them, and I don't know, it felt out of place. But there was one scene that Ange kind of went crazy on this dragon. She shot it, and she was like stabbing it over and over and over again, just going crazy. This blood is going
hmm
everywhere, and Tusk is a little freaked out by it. And afterwards, he's like, "You're cute, pretty, and you're pretty violent." But I was laughing at that. And eventually, Ange gets rescued by the girls. They come save her, and you know, Tusk gave her the option of leaving the island with him, but she's like, "No, I'm going back to there." So to me, I'm kind of confused why she would go back there. I mean, I thought she hated that place, but apparently not.
hmm Yeah.
So
Her first option, well, I mean, considering what she went through with Tusk, I guess you got to weigh your options of, do I want to stay with this guy, or, go back to this whole Norma stuff, where she kind of feels maybe that she might have a little more control of things there.
right, I think she's starting to realize that not everyone in the world is trying to kill her or after or wanting to hurt her. So I guess Tusk finally that might be his role in the series to show her that normals aren't all bad. That there are actually some good people out there. So maybe that's what she's trying to
hmm
realize that maybe it's not so bad there. It could be worse. At least I have a place to eat, a place to sleep and all that stuff. So it's like at least that's somewhat good. I mean, it's not the best, but yeah. I just think it was kind of weird that her character just changed. That she's accepting of Vivian, and she wants to be friends with everyone now after they saved her. So I'm not sure what they're gonna do with that. I mean, all I see is death flags by her doing that.
hmm
And to end, the last thing we saw was Tusk flying on this like rocket bike thing. And I guess before he did that, he prayed to all these military, like I guess gravestones. So yeah, I guess it shows you that Tusk's part in the military. Just I'm not sure which side he's on.
hmm
And he did feel kind of bad for the dragons, so I'm like wondering if maybe there's a group that actually is allied with the dragons. I mean, not I mean they feel bad for the dragons, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe they sympathize
hmm
with them.
Yeah, it would be a unique thing for the show to have almost kind of like this cult-like group of people that like the dragons or kind of deify them.
Yeah, they probably don't see him as like as bad. They just see him as they're just living, trying to be normal animals, whatever. But yeah, those
hmm
two episodes. I mean, overall, I think we kind of both kind of agreed that they're not the best. They're kind of like out there episodes, I would say.
Yeah, I think the show has, after the first three episodes of a lot of action and a lot of plot moving. I mean, I dropped the show, so I kind of feel like these past two episodes have been very mediocre by the standard. That's by the standards that have already been set, in my opinion, by Cross Ange in the first three.
Yeah, I agree on that. I'm still gonna watch because I'm curious what happens with Ange. But yeah, I can see why people would drop it after these episodes. Especially as, like we said, they set the tone to be this grim, dark story, and now they're shoving a comedy act in there, and they're shoving like this romance that really doesn't feel real whatsoever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's the Ange for you. Next one's a little better. Gundam G Reconguista Episode 5. The enemy is the Capital Army, which I guess tells you the whole, I guess, premise of the series so far, that Capital Army is technically the bad guys. We're supposed to be
hmm
anyway. And
It
go ahead.
it feels more like, especially after these two episodes, it sure does feel more and more like the Capital Army is made to be the enemy. As they kind of plan their escape, but they're not really putting much. I mean, it's not the right time to do it, but it doesn't seem like they're just 100% all in on it.
Right, yeah, there's several. I think even the episode, I think 6, they said the same thing that they're trying to escape. You know, what's her name keeps telling them we should do this escape, and there was one point where I think Ada actually overhears them, and she's like, "You're not playing escaping with a Gundam, are you?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"No, totally not." Like, oh come on, you just said it in your face. That was pretty funny, but yeah, they are trying to escape, and they keep trying to, but the Capital Army once again tries to rescue them, quote unquote rescue. They want to try to call it that, and
hmm
basically it's another excuse to test out a new model machine that is like a transformer. It's a jet mode and it's robot mode, and I guess it's another chance to test out a new soldier. I guess codename Mask, which everyone knows who he is. If you're watching it, you know who he is just by
Yeah.
his obviously blue hair color. So, what do you think of Mask and his? I know we talk about that fight later on, but what do you think of his character? He's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, he is pretty weird. For those mask characters, they always kind of had this kind of super serious attitude to them. Of course, Char's like the poster child for these mask type
Hmm.
characters, but I think like Mula Flaga and Gundam Seed and some of these other characters, like this one, he's pretty interesting.
Would you call Mr. Bushido from Double O one of these Mask characters? He's kind of the same. He's always
hmm
like, I want to fight, fight, fight. That's all he cared about in that
Oh
series.
yeah, yeah.
And the Mask guy in this one's weird because his other counterpart is so quiet and he's sort of nice to Bell, but this other version puts a mask on. He's completely different. Like you said,
hmm
he's super serious. It's like I'm wondering if the mask does something to his mind or whatever, maybe alters him a little bit.
Yeah, or it's just one of those things that you kind of change your persona when put it on.
Right? Maybe it's like Batman type thing where you have a mask on, you can be a different person. Versus,
hmm
I'm this other guy. So it's kind of funny. But again, you have Bell fighting his own allies again, which always seemed weird to me that they've done that. But I guess it's a good way to build maybe drama later on once he figures out who's who.
hmm
And so we get after they do that little fight. I guess the plan is to launch back into space. What they're trying to do with the pirates. So that's what one I guess part of the episode. And the other thing is while they're fighting or trying to launch, they have the core fighter is basically on the ground level of the cargo hold and it's kind of sliding around. I thought that was
hmm
just for me it looked kind of weird, kind of silly how they couldn't just figure it out.
Yeah, it looked like it was on like a bed mattress as it was flying around and hitting the wall and stuff.
Yeah, I'm like that's just to me it just seemed kind of weird, but again, this series is kind of doing the whole we gotta have something moving on screen all the time. So that's why they put that in there. Like you said, it was on the mattress kind of sliding around. It's kind of weird. But, they're getting attacked by the Capital Army, so Ida's gotta fight, and everyone else is fighting, but so they're waiting on Bell to figure it out. Finally, he does, and gets out there, and he kind of holds his own against the masked guy. It was kind of cool watching that fight. What'd you think of that battle?
Yeah, that was really cool, even considering that he was never really getting in the G self just to sort of move around with this. Well, he did get to the G self by the end of the episode, but to get all around that and then eventually have that battle, and there's some really cool things where with the water in there and with the blocking with the
Oh,
hands in
yeah,
there.
that's
That
cool.
was really cool. There was some really fun stuff in this battle.
Yeah, it showed that Bell could spin the wrist of the G self fast, so fast he makes the shield basically out of the beam sabers. I'm like, that's
hmm
that's pretty interesting. I never thought they could actually do that, but yeah, this show is definitely showing you like there's a lot of different weapons they can use besides the typical Gundam, rifle, beam saber. They actually can use it different ways, and even the transforming Capital Army mech doesn't look that great, but I mean it's their version of a Gundam basically. I guess what they're trying to build.
Yeah, yeah.
And in episode 5, Ada had the funny line that the core fighter is moving on its own. I couldn't stop laughing. It just it had me laughing for a bit. And then the great battle scene that we're just talking about was really cool, seeing how Bill kind of improvised on the spot how to make a shield out of nowhere. Kind of funny.
hmm
And then Monday and Kilm, they're kind of hitting it off more in each episode. I know it's more of a comical gag, but yeah, they're interesting pair to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then we also had the scene at the end with Ida thanking Bellry and then going back there and kind of crying as she felt like she had to thank somebody that killed Cahill. So a little bit of drama there for her character to lingering feelings of Cahill dying are still a little fresh in her mind.
Yeah, that's true. And episode 6 kind of like gives him his own thing like that. But yeah, episode 6 is, I don't know how to say his name really. Delson, I think is his name. Yeah,
Dellinson.
Delson, a fearsome foe, which kind of tells you he's going to be fighting, someone, obviously Bell. And episode starts with them back there in space still, and everyone's got their hair tied up, so I guess it's kind of maybe a realistic take on space, somewhat. I don't know.
Yeah, that was I was kind of throwing at first when I saw Bellry. He's like, oh, he's got his hair up. That's some new character.
Right? Yeah,
Of course, I didn't really think that, but
yeah, it's true. They had all their hair tied up, even like I say, even the guys were doing that. So I was like, man, it's just their way of saying, oh, we're in space, to show you we're in space. I know they did
yeah.
episode 1 when that girl took her helmet. All right, yeah, and it took the helmet off. The hair was everywhere, so I guess it's like, hey, that's why you tie your hair up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like again, like episode 5, they tried to escape, so they're planning another escape again this week, and yeah, it doesn't go so as planned, but yeah, it was kind of, I don't know. It makes me want to think like they're not really gonna escape. That's gonna be the running gag for those, you know,
Yeah,
those 3 characters, I think.
it was just Norido and Monday were hiding in a hatch, and then at the end they just popped out at the end.
Right? They're like, we're just not gonna worry about it, and those guards are just like, what are you doing here? And they're kind of accepting it, like. So yeah, I think that's gonna be the running gag with those 2 characters, to give them something to do. That way they're involved in the plot somewhere. And so yeah, Bell in space, but he does not really. I think he I wasn't sure if he was bad at it or was he successful at piloting space because he looked like he was not having much trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that would be Gundam build fighters where we can talk about trouble with piloting in space.
right, and with Bell, I guess since he's had experience with some mechs or mobile suits, he can do it more than the other people. Because that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the thing with Gundam. It's like they usually either they're from Earth, so they're good at the Earth parts. They're not from, or they're from space, and they usually get one of the parts wrong. But Bell seems to be okay with both, I think,
Mm-hmm.
Earth and space. And they gave him a giant reflector. Forgot kind of why they gave it to him. I was like, it's for detecting enemies or something, or I think it was a shield basically for the ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that was a really cool shield attached to it, and if that somehow stays in the arsenal as a regular weapon, I mean the G self will be incredibly powerful because that was able to deflect a lot.
Yeah, I think it was able to deflect and absorb, so he could basically power up his rifle and shoot
Hmm.
that, which is kind of cool. And
That's like
yeah,
something an enemy would get.
yeah, that's something like you would
That's how
see that.
powerful it
Yeah,
is.
like a reflective shield that, yeah, if you could bounce back beams back at you, yeah, it'd be pretty powerful. And yeah, I did notice that the G self did change color depending on the power up, so I'm guessing that's gonna be a thing. I mean, the ending does show him in like a red mode, and I think there's a different one after that. So I guess we're gonna be seeing various weapons throughout the series on the G self.
Hmm.
And so the Capital Army, they're planning their attack, and they finally get in space, and you know, Delson is fighting, and he has to fight Bell, and their fight kind of is very fast. It ends very fast, I would say. And through a series of events, Bell actually kills him, and I guess before he killed him, he figured out who it was. So that's kind of a thing that he's going to be dealing with for a long time now.
Yeah, it's the moment that kind of concerns me a little bit about Bellry's character is that concerned is kind of silly because this is Gundam we're talking about, so he'll kind of fall in line with a lot of main Gundam characters where they have that traumatic experience where he realized that he had killed Dellinson. He didn't seem as well. I guess time needs to soak in. He didn't seem as grief stricken by it yet, but he might fall in line with a lot of characters like Kira who vow to do everything except kill the enemy that they're up against.
Right, yeah, that seems to be a thing. I mean, Age was heavily hitting on that throughout I think, third half. That the main kill was put up against the enemy that he kind of befriended, and he doesn't see him as a threat, so he's forced to fight. And Bellry, same thing. It's kind of hard to feel. I mean, I guess some people would say it's hard to feel bad for him when he's fighting in this G self. So it's like obviously you're gonna fight someone. You're fighting the
Hmm.
Capital Army, not 10 to 1 odds. You're gonna probably fight someone that you're friends with or something like that. But yeah, he does. like you said at the beginning, he doesn't feel as much grief about it, but later on it kind of hits him when he's in back
Hmm.
in with the on the ship. But yeah, it's kind of I'm afraid for his character because he's kind of this fresh air character that he's new. He's kind of new for me because he's upbeat, happy, and not the typical emo sad Gundam character. But now I think this might push him into that direction, like you were saying, where
Hmm.
he's not as happy to pilot the G self anymore. He may see it as a curse, like a lot of these
Yeah.
characters do.
And even if that is the case of his character
Hmm.
trajectory, is that maybe it could be like a funk that he gets in and he has to work out of as he starts talking with like Norido and Ida more and some of the others like Clem. Hopefully if he does go through something like a moment of sort of grief and sadness, that he'll bounce back at some point.
Right, and even in Seed, a bunch of people don't really like it. Kara had to do the same thing. He had to kind of stop being that way because he realized his friends are on the ship, and if he doesn't do anything, they're all gonna die. So, Bell's probably gonna figure the same thing with Ida and the other girl that if he doesn't do anything, someone's gonna die. So it's like he has to do something. And right now Ida and Bell are kind of similar now. They both have lost mentors that or are close to them, but Ida didn't really kill her mentor, but Bell killed both of them. So Bell's kind of got he's the death toll for him is kind of rising slowly.
Hmm.
So but right now it's like it makes you wonder: is he gonna pilot next week? Is he gonna be not as you know planning to do it? Because Ida can pilot the G
Hmm.
self, obviously, if she
Yeah.
wants to.
Yeah, we've seen a couple episodes of some really solid action. So even in terms of just thinking of it from the prospect of like animating the show and the story progression, that maybe we'll get an episode where we don't have much fighting going on, or one where Bellry isn't fighting.
Right? Yeah, it's definitely the thing that they could probably do later on. And extras from the episode, the space fight wasn't bad. I mean, it was kind of cool seeing Bell actually have a handle on space, but most characters kind of struggle with that in some of these Gundams. It was kind of cool seeing that.
Mm, yes.
And rest in peace, Delazin. I mean, he wasn't the greatest character, but he was interesting. I mean, he was kind of, I guess, almost want to say a father figure to Bell a little bit in the beginning. I mean, we
Hmm.
don't may not know that for a fact, but the way he acted around Bell was kind of like he kind of took him under his wing and kind of like guided him. Even special fighting and stuff like that, he kind of taught him
Hmm.
stuff like that.
And he looked like one of those guys that regardless of what mech he was piloting, he would always have a chance in battle and he could always hold his own.
Right, yeah, no matter who he's fighting. And Monday, she has her dirt moments talking about poop this week about the goldfish. It's pretty funny.
What if that's a hidden line that we're supposed to hold on to for the overall story? Like, what if poop means something?
Yeah, this could be like a metaphor for something. Because there was a moment when they gave her like oxygen or air or whatever. I guess they're trying to fix her helmet, and she kind of was
Hmm.
speaking a little bit clearly. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe she might be the wise
Yeah,
character that she says these one-liners are like the overall episode review, whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what do you think of those two episodes?
Those two episodes were pretty good. The action scenes, I really enjoyed getting back to those after we talked about enjoying episode 4. So I think the story is getting into a nice flow of things now. It's pretty good, and we're starting to see bits and pieces more about the Capital Army and realizing that they're not exactly the good guys in this. I would like to see more about the church that we had talked about a couple weeks ago, as we feel like there's something really big going on with them.
Right, and I assume that since they're in space, the object is maybe to go to the moon. Maybe they figure out where the Gundam comes from. Maybe they're finding out about Monday. If there's a way to fix her back to normal, and maybe she'll see something that triggers something, and she'll finally reveal the whole plot of who's going to be the true enemy of the series.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's good to see the Capital Army kind of doing their thing. I mean, we kind of have a better understanding of who we should really be siding with almost, but I can see some siding with the Capital Army because they are an interesting bunch, especially the mask guy. Like, what's his goal? Is he
Hmm.
gonna figure out he's being used or whatever, or is he gonna betray everybody and become the main villain? Which a lot of the times that's what happens with these masked characters. They kind of become the default villain just because of the way they look.
Yeah. Hmm.
And after get all that those Gundams, we get back to Build Fight Tri. Episode 3, her name is Gyanko, and I guess it's basically our Tri fighters fighting against an all girl team from a different school,
Yeah.
which is kind of
Seems
interesting.
like every show or every anime thing that has these shows that are based around competition, they always got to make sure that they go up against an all-girls school.
Yeah, all girls
It's like
school, or all academy, all male school, or some kind of thing like that.
it's almost like you got to get your archetypes and your character types in there.
Right, yeah, definitely. And basically, the beginning was kind of funny. We had Yuma kind of show up at Sekai's house, and he was like, "I'm here to take you to school," and trying to impress Sekai's
hmm
sister. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that in these past couple episodes, those two have been really funny together.
Oh yeah, and she's just like, "Oh, you're so nice," and he's just like, "Yeah, I'm getting brownie points for being nice to Sekai." But it's like the
Mm-hmm.
minute he turned that corner, he's like, "Nope." They're just back at each other's throats. That was pretty funny. And like you said, I mentioned earlier, Sekai's got to practice, and means practicing on different fields, which is, like you said, space. And he's kind of like trying to do his martial arts moves, and he can't do it. He's like, "What the hell? Like, what's going on?" Like he's confused.
hmm Yeah,
Eh,
he and Rao was training with him in this episode or the next one.
Yeah, he was training one of the episodes, and he was just. It's just funny seeing this guy. I would say probably in his 50s, maybe higher, probably younger than that. But
hmm
he's when he starts battling, he becomes this young guy again when he's battling. It's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Uh,
And I like the attention to detail on that. Like space actually changes the dynamic of the match. Like
yeah.
gravity,
hmm
Earth. And I guess Ral did mention that, even if you're on the moon gravity in the game is also different. So there's a little bit of realism even underwater. They said that it adds more weight to your suit. So I think that's kind of cool to take that into account.
Yeah, when they showed, I guess we're talking about the beginning of episode 4 by this point. It was kind of foreshadowing for what the next big battle will be, where they might be underwater, and Sekai is going to have to learn how to fight differently, or just learn how to use his Jigen How underwater.
Right, and they're also trying to teach him how to use different weapons. Like there's a bit where they're using guns and stuff. They're trying to train him to use a gun, and he's not very
Mm,
good at it. He can't even hit
Uh-uh.
a target that's sitting still. Like he's just missing all of it. So they're like, eventually you gotta learn to use different weapons. But I think that's just a gag, just so he's only good at fighting. So he's gonna be doing
Yeah.
that.
hmm
And like I said, the fight, Gyanko, like you said, they're all girls' school. They're fighting. I guess they're like Zaku fans, or they're I guess they're those kind of fans. So all their suits are basically sort of similar, but there were some Gundams in the background I saw. Well, I think one has
hmm
one from G Gundam. It's like a Sailor Scout looking Gundam.
Yeah.
And the fight was kind of almost one-sided for a bit. I think Gyanko was kind of overpowering Fumio for a good part. And I guess those two have a little bit of rivalry between them. Because they've been fighting for a while at different tournaments together. So those two kind of fight for a bit, and then you had Yuma saving her at the end. It's kind of cool seeing them shoot between two mountains, like a tiny little hole in the mountain. It's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, and the way Hoshino set it up for him was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, and get more fight progress. Sekai's eventually fights Gyanko, and those two kind of fight, and he builds a hole through the space station, sucking her out into space. But he saves her. I guess I don't know what you call it. Good sportsmanship, I guess. He saves her and
Yeah.
doesn't want her to lose that
hmm
way. But she kind of has to forfeit because it's like both the other teammates are down and she's down, so they have to they kind
Uh-huh.
of have to forfeit.
And then she quickly falls for Sekai.
Yeah, her
That was,
that's pretty funny.
she was impressed. I thought it was a good battle mainly because it starts establishing how the Tri-Fighters will fight and what their identity is in battle. We of course know Yuma's going to be long distance, and Sekai is going to be close range now because of his martial arts skill. And then that kind of leads into episode 4 when Hoshino realizes I should be a good mid-range type.
Right, she wants to be good at kind of both, I guess. Mid and range fighting and in your face fighting. But yeah, definitely see that next episode. But the end of this episode is funny that, like you said, Gyanko kind of falls for Sekai, and she brings him food and before school, and he's just like, "Oh, cool, free food," and she runs off, and everyone else is like, "You have
Mhm.
no idea what you're getting into, do you?" He's like,
Uh-uh.
"What do you mean?" She just gave me food. So what's wrong with that?
Oh, Sekai.
And Gakko, I kind of was talking about her character design. It's kind of grown on me. I actually kind of like it now after I've seen the episode a couple times. But she's kind
Hmm.
of an interesting character, which is in my extra notes for this episode. She's super energetic, kind of fun to watch. And now that she has a crush on Sekai, it's like, is he gonna notice her? Probably not.
Nope, he never will.
Nope, he's gonna be worried about fighting and so all that. So, and like I said, the last thing was G Gundam, like the Sailor Scout one. I think it's one of the suits in G Gundam that was in there.
Yeah. Hmm.
And going right to episode 4, G Muse, like you mentioned before, it kind of leads into this episode with the hint of the Tri-Fighters fighting the swimming team eventually, which is kind of funny. Because,
That
yeah.
is, uh, you know, we so many anime, so many ridiculous clubs and stuff, but the fact that the swimming team has a gunpla club
Yeah,
that they
exactly. Of
they're fighting.
all clubs, the swim team has a. I mean, because season 1 has a baseball episode I won't tell you about, but this is the episode where they're doing all these sports festival events and they play baseball with the Gundam, so it's pretty funny watching that.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it's
cool.
a cool sports episode. But yeah, you said swimming team. It's a little ridiculous, but I guess it's like, maybe every kid has a hobby, and that just happens to be theirs.
Hmm.
It does seem kind of weird, but yeah. So eventually they fight him. They don't fight him this week. This is more like a build into the episode. And we said Sekai is practicing. Like I said, Raul is teaching him the basics, especially like environments. We talked about that, and how different
Hmm.
weapons are important. How techniques. He has to, like you said, he has to learn how to use that his technique underwater or in space. He can't use it all the time on ground level. So he has to learn to do it.
Hmm.
And the other part of the episode is basically Hoshino, like we said, mentioning that she needs to figure out how to be, not a burden to the other two. She needs to figure out where she's, good at, where she excels. So that basically brings to the fact she has to bring a whole new suit. She wants to bring a whole new model. She doesn't want to use the same one she's been using.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought that at some point she would change that because it didn't look like a particularly strong Gundam.
Right, it's kind of like a basic soldier to me, like a not a powerful one at all. There's like nothing special about hers right now as it stands.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a mall I guess you can go to. It has all these Gundam stuff. Which I think that's real. I think that's as far as I know.
Yeah. Yeah, because they went to Osaka
Mhm.
and they showed a big Gundam, which of course that's where it's at. And it was funny. See, Sekai and his sister Mirai were like, "Wow, that's amazing gunpla." But not really
Yeah,
gunpla.
both of them were like, "Oh, well, that's cool." I'm like, I was waiting for him, like, I bet he's gonna say something like he wants to use that in the Gunpla fight, like that giant one.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? And yeah, speaking of that, those two go on a date. Technically not a date, but I guess it's that guy's sister sees it as a date, and she's stalking
Hmm.
him like typical anime trope we see on all the shows. And
Yeah.
there's a funny scene before they get to the giant Gundam where she's like, "Close your eyes," and pulls them, and the girls are kind of like, "Oh my God, they're gonna kiss." Thinking something bad. And
Hmm.
they don't, but it's still funny watching his sister just kind of freak out over him. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, that was pretty funny in the way they set it up to where like where Mirai's view was Hoshino was behind Sekai and they were facing each other. She's like, "No, Hoshino, wow, she's so bold."
Right, grabbing his hand and everything.
Yeah.
It is funny. I mean, it does show you that she's very protective of her brother, but it is kind of funny. But I think that's pretty much what her
Hmm.
role is going to be right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean we were talking about that when Amuro was last on uh about Mirai telling Hoshino to take care of Sekai like, wow, she's really setting it up for them.
Yeah, definitely. And so you had Hoshino and then went inside the mall, and I guess they're at the Gundam shop, and she's looking for Gundams, and Mirai's kind of like, then that's not really a date because he kind of left her. And she's like, why do you leave her?
Uh-huh.
And so basically she's looking for a new model to be building for the fight, and Sekai kind of gets pulled over to build these small, I guess, super deformed Gundams. That's kind of weird. That I guess that was like they're showing the kids about that.
Hmm. Yeah, and one more funny thing about the whole Mirai thing is that Yuma walks in and he hears Sekai yelling up a storm, and then she and then Mirai comes in and says like, "Hey, you want to get some tea?" and then or something, and then they leave, and it's like that worked out brilliantly for the both of them. Like he gets to hang out with her, and she can kind of just get out of their hair.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Even before that, he was building his model and like it broke. He's like, "Is this a bad omen?" Like he felt some kind of like, guessing Gundam terms, like a disturbance.
Yeah.
And so that forces him to go to the mall. He meets her, and it's like you said, it's kind of a funny setup how those two get to hang out, and they're definitely pairing those two up as, he's a guy who knows all about Gundam and all this stuff, and she's just kind of this novice. So it's kind of funny just seeing that kind of back and forth. And yeah, so we get back to the SD fighting, and I guess Sekai gets pulled into a fight because he built this model for the first time. He wants to use it, and one of the guys from the swim club, I guess that's who he is, showed up to drop off this model he built, and he gets pulled in the
Hmm.
SD fight, and he builds this Gundam like on the fly. It was kind of funny watching how he built it.
Yeah, I was just wow, really fantastical there, but it was neat.
Yeah, throwing it in the air, fixing it before it hits the ground. I was like, wow, this kid.
If only building Gunpla were that easy.
Yeah, I know, or building anything of that. That's pretty amazing. And the fight kind of goes one-sided for a bit. Sakai's kind of winning, but this new kid kind of just pulls out all the stops and like two shots him. And I guess that's the special thing about the SD ones. I guess all of them have like a power-up move they can do.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
guess that kind of inspires Hoshino. Which I mean, I'm disappointed that she's gonna be using one of those, but the opening and the ending obviously show you she gets one of those SD Gundams here later on. Which
Hmm.
I'm not really a fan of. I've never liked the design. I've watched the show maybe like 5 episodes in, and I just dropped it because I just couldn't stand it anymore. But
Hmm. Yep.
yeah,
Maybe when you watch a show based on SD
hmm
Gundam, it kind of has that tone of super deformed, kind of
right,
cutesy, kind of fun. Whereas here, maybe I mean, we see some really great action with the SD Gundams in this battle between Sekai and I'm forgetting the kid's name from the swim club. Um, and the power ups made it even more cool. So hopefully, the SD Gundam, will be pretty bamf in battle.
yeah. That's one thing I am surprised about the power up section of it. So that at least gives Hoshino a kind of a flashy edge if she gets one like that. So, but yeah, I'm kind of disappointed, but eventually I think it'll grow on me, like you said, since it's set in the
Hmm.
Build Fight universe, maybe it might not be as bad as being set in the SD universe.
Yeah.
And extras, like we said, the SD animation, and the fight, and the power up was really cool. Just seeing that, it's kind of like a fighting game. You execute like a combo, you get that flashy animation, and you do this big combo. So maybe the SD will be doing that a lot. It looked pretty cool, at least. I like that.
Hmm.
And Hoshino and Sekai is a great pairing. I mean, it may not be a romance pairing, but it is a fun pair to watch. Again, it's like the same thing with Yuma and the other girl that he knows a lot about Gundam, she doesn't. So you have the opposite with Hoshino knows a lot, but Sekai doesn't know anything about it. So it's kind of interesting. Maybe they can teach each other and they can learn other things besides Gundam. Pretty interesting.
Hmm.
So, what do you think of?
You learn other things
Yeah, I mean,
like what?
like life stuff instead of just it's all about
Yeah, yeah.
fighting with Sekai.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah.
how to
Hmm.
interact with people, I guess, because he's very bad at that right now.
Hmm.
And so what do you think of these two episodes? I kind of like them.
I agree. I like them too. You know, more about establishing what their roles are in fighting, and it looks like we'll get our first serious competition up against the swim club, as it almost kind of feels like kind of reminds, well, maybe not so much Haikyuu, but like build fighters try, like the school that they're in, it's a club that people don't really think of as like, oh, we have to fear them as a powerhouse, or they were powerful or something. So it'll be interesting to see the Tri team kind of work their way up the ranks.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing how they kind of act as a team. I know right now they're kind of rough, especially Yuma and Sekai. They don't really get along as much, and I mean there might be episodes where he has to stop being so stubborn and actually get along with Sekai and Yuma the same thing. They're gonna have to rely on each other because they're a team, obviously. So they gotta kind of get used to the fact they will be working together. So they can't be fighting all the time with each other. But yeah, I mean the Bill fight. I always love seeing these unique groups like the swim club and the all girls school. There's fighters, so it's interesting. Like I said before, season one it's a sports festival thing, and then just for me to see Gundam try something new like that, it's always interesting. So I'm just curious
Hmm.
what they do with this. I mean, SD Gundams. aside, that looks pretty cool if they're putting the three together. Maybe to get this new dynamic and they can play off each other. So maybe like a tag
Yeah.
team match they can do. But yeah, overall, 2 episodes are pretty fun. I like the characters again. They're always doing some fun things with the pairings. And I guess that's been Mecha Talk this week. We'll probably do some. Maybe it won't be as long next week. So.
Yeah, we went kind of long. We had a lot of episodes to talk about.
Yeah.
I imagine Cross Ange talks will be shorter going forward.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's true. And I might change up a little bit, maybe do a different lineup next time. So.
Yeah.
Yep. Tell you guys next week for more Mecha Talk.
See you. Thanks for listening.